Good evening, and welcome to the City of Warrenville Public Works and Infrastructure Committee of the Whole regular meeting. It's Monday, December 10th, 2018. May I have a roll call, please?
Alderman Ashour.
Here.
Alderman Berry.
Here.
Alderman Bevere.
Here.
Alderman Davalos.
Here.
Alderman Goodman.
Here.
Alderman Hoffman.
Here.
Alderman Widener.
Here.
Alderman Wilson.
Here.
Okay, and we all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, citizens' comments. If anyone has any comments of the items under the business of the meeting, they're more than welcome to get up and make their comment at the time that is presented. Now for official and staff comments, Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Two things tonight. One, big thanks to the Park District for another successful Holidays Friday night. A lot of fun, nice crowd, good entertainment, just a nice hometown activity. And even though it was 27 degrees, we had a pretty good crowd and had a lot of fun. So thanks to the Park District for that. Also, thanks to the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Commission who got us recertified on the bronze level as a bicycle-friendly community. Pretty important with all the pathways that we have and the opportunities to get out and bike, that we make sure that we make the most of those opportunities, and the Bicyclist and Pedestrian Advisory Commission make sure that we do. So that certification by the League of American Bicyclists is, I think, still we're one of 3 communities in DuPage County, Naperville, Elmhurst, and Warrenville, that are certified. So Justin, thanks so much for your efforts on that, and the rest of the commission also. That's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Clerk? Nothing. Okay, Alderman? Alderman Goodman?
Just wanted to remind everybody that the Toys for Tots can be dropped off at the police department through noon on Friday.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. City Administrator?
I don't have anything to add tonight. I don't think any of the staff does either. Thank you.
Okay. Then on to the business of the meeting. Number 1, consideration of a change to the signage on Batavia Road at Route 59. That will be presented by Phil Kukler, Deputy Public Works Director.
Thank you and good evening. The Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Commission and residents have expressed concern to staff about the potential for conflicts between pedestrians crossing Route 59 and vehicles that are turning right from Batavia Road to northbound 59. As you recall, there's the Batavia Road path crosses that leg of the intersection. Back in 2007, City Council passed an ordinance that directed staff to put up signage that says no turn on red when pedestrians are present. We have still received earlier this year concerns and complaints from residents and the BPAC again that signage isn't effective, and there's still issues, that there are concerns on their part. So I happened to be riding my bike along the path throughout the fall, and I was sitting there at a red light waiting for the green light and the walk signal to cross 59, and I realized how dumb that sign is. I'm sitting there, I can't cross 59 because there's a red light for Batavia Road and there's green light for traffic on 59. I'm not crossing 59 when traffic is going on 59, yet the cars are being told they can't go either because I'm sitting there waiting to cross 59. So I did some research on more appropriate signage, and the more appropriate signage would be turning vehicles yield to pedestrians. And so that way, when they are turning and they have the green light and they can turn, the pedestrians would have the walk signal to cross 59 theoretically at that same time, and might be crossing in the crosswalk. And all that sign is doing is kind of reiterating what the law already says, which is if there's a pedestrian in the crosswalk, you basically can't hit them. I mean, you got to stop for them in the crosswalk. I worked with the police chief on this and talked with him about it, and he agrees. And what I'm asking council to do tonight is to repeal the old ordinance so that we can take that signage down and then just look for direction to replace that signage with the appropriate signage. I'm not asking for a new ordinance. I'm not looking for this signage to be codified, because the police chief has indicated he doesn't need the city code to have this in there to be able to enforce the law. And the law already says that you can't hit somebody in the crosswalk. So if he would cite if a pedestrian was crossing the road legally in the crosswalk and a vehicle were to hit him, he would cite the driver. And I think I would suspect even if a pedestrian got hit there in the crosswalk, regardless of what the walk signal says, your cars should be stopping, right? With that, I'd answer any questions anyone has.
Thank you. Any questions? Alderman Widener?
Yeah, Phil, I just wondered, with the previous sign up, has there been any record of enforcement with infractions that have taken place as a result of the previous sign with the ordinance?
I don't believe there have been. Been talking to the police chief at it. He couldn't recall any enforcement of that signage, and really where that sign would help is if somebody was crossing Batavia Road, giving what it does. But he wasn't aware of any citations for drivers.
And with the new sign that's proposed, as far as the placement of it, would it be in the same location, or would you intend to put it up maybe one on each side of the 59, or would it only be on the present side of Route 59?
I'd envision it being on the close side of 59. I think drivers, if they're looking to turn right, are probably going to be looking left, or looking at actually if they got the green light, looking across to see if there's any left-hand traffic that might be coming, and should be looking at pedestrians. But I think they're more likely to see the sign closer to them. I don't think they're going to be looking up across at the mast arm on the opposite side of the intersection. You're looking probably 100 to 150 feet away.
Because I think one of the issues with the current signage, in the opinion of some people who have looked at it, is that, you actually have to turn your neck pretty sharply to the right and look up in order to see that sign that's on the what would be the northeast corner of 59 and Batavia Road. And I don't know if you're sitting at stoplights. I'm not an expert in this by any means, but if you're sitting on a stoplight, whether you're more likely to look across the distance and see maybe a sign across the intersection, or have them placed on both posts. But it just seems like there's an issue with, I think, traffic that's pulling up and trying to quickly make a right on red, just not visualizing or seeing that sign, especially without an enforcement record, or people knowing that it's any kind of difficult spot to get through because of enforcement.
Yeah, we can take a look at that when we're taking down the old signage and look if there's a better placement to that sign in that corner. We're kind of limited by what's available to mount it on.
Okay.
But for people, when I rode my bike through, the people that obeyed the no turn on red sign when pedestrians are present, which again I think is kind of silly given what we're trying to achieve there. And there are people that didn't. I mean, people would pull up, take a look for an opening in traffic and go. But in either event, it didn't affect me as a pedestrian at all because I was waiting for the light to turn anyway.
Okay.
So, but I'll work with our street division to
Yeah,
look at
whatever
the
the
placement, see if it-
professionals say, or the most obvious spot where people would capture their attention would be good. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I've turned there every morning for probably 6 years in a row, and to go to work. And the sign right there at the Burger King, to me, when you pull up, you're making a right-hand turn. You either look for a sign that says no turn on red. So if you're looking for that sign, you're going to see a sign as you pull up to that line. If you're the first car in line. If you're not the first car in line, you will definitely see that sign if it is there. So it definitely has to be on that post, for sure. So I think that's quite important. Anyone else? Okay. Alderman Goodman?
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the City Council repeal ordinance number 2399 and direct staff to replace the existing signs with appropriate signage on Batavia Road at Route 59.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Goodman and a second by Alderman Davalos. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Number 2, Warrenville and Bloom maintenance work on city consideration of an agreement authorizing Warrenville and Bloom to perform maintenance work at specific locations on city property. Again, this is Phil Kukler, the Deputy Public Works Director.
Thank you again. This item resulted from Warrenville and Bloom making a request of staff to take on the maintenance of the plantings around the gazebo and the book sculpture area. As we looked for any sort of existing agreement that kind of documented where Warrenville and Bloom had permission to work, we really couldn't find one. I think there was an email documentation that listed like 7 or 8 items from probably about 10 years ago that Dorothy Deere was able to provide me a copy of that was scanned and it was readable, but it's clearly an older document. So I think this staff determined this a good idea at this time to basically create a license agreement that would grant Warrenville and Bloom the ability to work on various city properties and list where those areas were specifically. So both Warrenville and Bloom volunteers and city staff and elected officials were clear on where they were. The staff worked with the city attorney to draft an agreement, and the city attorney took some sample agreements from other communities they worked in that had similar situations and drafted the agreement for us. I took some information from Warrenville and Bloom on the locations where they currently do work and incorporated that in the agreement that's in the agenda backup materials. I shared that with Warrenville and Bloom last week, and they provided me some comments late last week after the agendas are out, because I didn't give it to them until about the middle of last week. The memos that are at each of your spots tonight reflect those comments and summarize the comments that I've received so far. Dorothy Deere did indicate that there's, I think, one person out of town that she still wanted to review the document. The comments that have been provided so far seem reasonable. I don't have any issues. Some of them are typos, some of them are clarifications on where the work actually is occurring. And there's a couple of rewording of a couple of items, too, to make it clear what Warrenville and Bloom is responsible for, what they might be held responsible for. One item, because Dorothy had one other person that needs to review this, she suggested or asked that we play with the final agreement not be put on a city council agenda until January, and I don't see any problem with that. There's no urgency to get this done in December. We can wait till January, and as long as we receive the comments and get an agreement that we are both in favor of, I think that's what's important here. And what I would envision is that in one of the January city council agendas, I would bring the final, put the final agreement in there with a summary of changes, and whether that be a kind of red line document that really shows you where the changes were made from what's in tonight's agenda packet, or a final version with a summary memo like you have tonight at your space. I could go either way on that, but it would be clear what changes were made, and unless there's something substantial, I wouldn't see a need to bring this back to another committee meeting. Like I said, the comments so far I've received have been pretty minor and easy to incorporate. There are a lot of clarifications in there, and I'd envision more of the same probably if I receive any additional comments. So with that, I'd be happy to entertain any questions.
Alderman Goodman?
Yeah, I want to recuse myself from this discussion because I represent Warrenville and Bloom in this matter as a pro bono attorney.
Okay. Any other comments? Questions? Alderman Wilson?
Yeah, I have a question here about the Section 8, there it says insurance. And it says the Warrenville and Bloom must obtain and maintain at its sole expense a liability insurance. Is this an entity other than the money that we supply the Warrenville and Bloom each year? Is this, they'll be taking the money out of that? Or is this additional money that we're going to supply to them to pay for the insurance?
I'm going to answer that question. I think you're referring to the Tourism and Arts Hotel grant that they receive every year. That grant does not cover any overhead expenses, so they can't include insurance or anything like that in the grant costs. So this insurance, whatever insurance that they obtain every year for their purposes, is covered through the other means, other funds that they collect. They do some fundraising activities and other things that brings in some revenue for them.
But they are responsible for a separate, even though they're on, so none of it's covered by city insurance, since they're on city property.
Correct.
Okay, I mean, so it's a separate entity.
Yes.
I mean, we're establishing a little different relationship, aren't we? Or is it just requiring them now to have this insurance where before we didn't?
I believe they actually have a certificate of insurance that they update every year and provide to the city, and the city has on file. I think that's one of the person that Dorothy wants to review this document, so it's out of town, was going to specifically look at the insurance section to make sure it's consistent with what they already have and provide, and give feedback on that. But they already do have a certificate of insurance they provide to the city each year because they are working on city property.
Okay, that's fine. That was just my question about the insurance.
Clerk Larson also has a comment.
Phil is correct, we do have liability insurance, but we do need to check and make sure it's going to list everything things that were added. That's why we'd like more time before a decision is made. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Just need a motion by someone. Okay. All right, Alderman Weidner?
I move to recommend the city council pass a resolution approving an agreement with Warrenville and Bloom, granting Warrenville and Bloom permission to perform planting and maintenance work on various city properties.
We have a motion by Alderman Weidner and a second by Alderman Wilson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Number 3, consideration to negotiate a lease agreement with Symbiont Energy LLC for a solar project at well number 9. Deputy Public Works Director Phil Kukler.
Thank you. You may recall during the preparation of the last 2 fiscal year budgets that a couple of elected officials promoted some solar initiatives, one being a solar study, another being a solar project actually at well number 9, which is located at Maycliff Drive and Warrenville Road. For a couple of reasons, staff has not actually made any progress on those, or at least notable progress. We have we've got a work plan, both department work plan and a citywide work plan with higher priorities, more important projects at this point in time. Then 2, there's the challenge with staff right now is that if we were to build a project and own and maintain it, we have 0 experience dealing with solar infrastructure. And while in an ideal world, the stuff would be very low maintenance and little effort, I mean, we don't know. We don't know what we don't know, and it'd be difficult to jump in and own and maintain one of those. And despite our lack of notable progress on this, staff did continue to research. We reached out to the Metropolitan Mayor's Caucus. Justin reached out through some contacts he has professionally, and we came across Symbiont Energy. And they are a private company that finances, builds, owns, operates, and maintains solar infrastructure. And they are Justin described them as a boutique firm. They're a company that they don't work on necessarily really large projects, large scale. They actually find these smaller projects to work on, and this would be, by solar standards, a fairly small project. I think it's like a 60 kilowatt facility. So it seems that we have a feasible project here just based on the conceptual information they've looked at and researched. They've looked over our ComEd bills over the last year, so they know how much we've spent on it, how much energy's been used there, which is where they came up with a 60 kilowatt facility. And I think we spend about $6,000 a year on electricity for well number 9. That's a site that has some green space where we could actually build a solar array there, that there's space to do so. And they are, in order to make this financially feasible for Symbiont to be able to do this and provide energy savings project where we would either break even with what we pay ComEd right now or save money potentially, Symbiont needs to apply for a renewable energy credit contract to help make it feasible on their end. And in order to do that, they need some level of comfort from the city that we would, if they are successful in obtaining that renewable energy credit contract, that we would actually negotiate a contract with them, and they wouldn't be wasting their time and money and effort to pursue that contract. So what I'm recommending tonight is that City Council authorize staff to negotiate an agreement with Symbiont Energy to provide, at worst, a break-even cost project. We would have to work with the city attorney to review an agreement from Symbiont, and then there's going to be some back and forth to get that in a form that's acceptable to the city. If Symbiont's successful in obtaining the renewable energy credit contract in January, then I would expect sometime in the first quarter 2019 we'd be bringing back an agreement to council for approval. But if they're not successful in that, then the finances aren't going to work for them, so there would be no agreement to bring back. We would update you, but on whichever way it goes. But if it's not financially feasible for them, I mean, they're a private company, they're looking to make money. I believe they cited something like, for their investors, they target like an 8% rate of return on their investment. So they've offered through this process to have an open book. They'll open up their books and share that with us, so we're very clear on what the project costs them, what the RECs, the renewable energy credits, would how that would benefit them, and what profits in it for them, so we know that they're, they're not, they are looking for, an 8% profit as opposed to like a 50% profit or something crazy like that, and that the cities would be getting a good deal. So at this point, all we're looking for is authorization to negotiate with them should there be a feasible project, and then we would bring that agreement to council probably the first quarter of next year for a presentation for your consideration. So at this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Alderman Bevere?
Yeah, so what we're voting on tonight is just to get the information. I mean, I'd like to really see what we pay now in combat actual, what they can, what it costs to build it. I'd like to see a site plan of how it's going to look. And we should have a meeting with Preserve at the Cantera to ask them what their feelings are. It's right in their backyard. I don't have enough, there's not enough information here tonight. I don't know if we're voting to do just to find out these figures, or is this to move forward with this company? So I can't vote on that until I have all that stuff in front of me so I can compare everything. That's what I'd like to do. So I don't know if you can answer that question.
Well, it's couple things. One, we don't zone by neighbor, so if the project meets the zoning requirements and the requirements of the city, then the neighbors can't dictate what happens on that property, whether it's city property or another private property. So I requested and have received just today a conceptual site plan. I think what they laid out so far shows the solar panels being, I think, approximately 35 feet from the common property line with the Preserve at Cantera. I need to share that with community development and get their feedback on zoning requirements and how this would meet it. Now, there hasn't been a similar project to this constructed in the city, so it's going to take a little bit of working with Natalia and Ron to determine if there are any special use variations or anything like that required, or if it could meet our zoning codes the way it is. I suspect there's going to be some sort of special consideration because it is a new type of a project. And then, so we do have a conceptual site plan, and the facility actually isn't. I forget how many arrays are there. Like 5 different arrays or something like that. It doesn't take up that much space on the property. I can certainly understand the concern of neighbors if they're looking at solar panels. I mean, I'm not sure how I'd feel about that on a property next door, but that's something I have to work through with community development as part of this process to determine what the requirements are with the city. But they still have to get a building permit. They'll still have to go through whatever approvals are necessary if there are any special approvals to get this constructed. And cost savings wise, we spend about $6,000 a year there with ComEd right now. They've indicated with their preliminary numbers, and that's without having a renewable energy credit contract yet, without any final numbers from installers or anything like that, which they're in the process of trying to get better numbers than right now. But with their preliminary estimates based on their experience with these type of projects, I think they're estimating we'd save like $1,000 a year or something like that in ComEd costs. And we're looking at probably about a 20-year agreement for them to be able to recoup their investment.
Thank you.
City Administrator Coakley?
I'm going to make an effort to clarify something, so everybody brace yourselves. Phil, what you're asking for tonight is the city council to show a commitment to this project, but is nowhere near a final approval. That will come with a contract that will be negotiated, you said sometime in the first quarter, so given enough time, probably February at the earliest, maybe March, to fit in that time frame. If the Symbiont doesn't have our commitment, they can't use us as one of the potential locations or municipalities, local governments, what have you, where they would be able to build this project, so they can't include us in the grant. So, and the reason for the timing, if we had this knowledge of this information 6 months ago, we would have all that information in place already. We could share that, but it's come to your attention recently. I think this is all fairly recent project. Correct me wherever I go wrong. And we're running up against some deadlines here. If we wait to get all the information that we'd like to have to make the decision, we'll miss out on this opportunity. I'm trying to paraphrase what you're
correct.
pointing
It's
out. Okay.
basically, there's a mid-January release of these renewable energy credits, and they're trying to meet that application deadline. They do need a commitment from the city to be able to proceed because they do have to spend money of their own to make that application.
But that commitment, the city council could vote next Monday to commit to this based on tonight. I think that's the time frame here.
Mm-hmm.
They can go ahead, apply for those grants, and if we don't like the deal because of whatever it is at that point. I'm assuming even if there was an uprising from the neighbors, if you will, then the city could say, no, we're gonna move on, thank you very much for the time, and it won't, there's no loss, because there's no real investment in anybody's time here. So tonight is just to get a commitment. If the council's comfortable with the concept and they can vote for it, that's all they're committing to right now.
That's correct. There's no contract that's resulting from tonight that we're signing.
And
to
we
say
can
that-
walk away later if it just doesn't look like something we want to do.
And Symbiont could also walk away
Yeah,
and say, we
okay.
don't want to negotiate with
Fair
them
enough.
because it doesn't work for us.
Thank you.
Alderman Hoffman?
Yeah, as long as the people around there are okay with it and it's not gonna cost us a dime and possibly lower the water rates, and I'm all for it. Thank you.
Alderman Ashour?
In the backup, I'm reading would possibly save money, or at least may not pay more for electricity than it currently does, and deliver at least a break-even energy-saving project when we're considering basically signing a lease for city property with a for-profit company that's looking to use us to get grants. When there isn't something in here that says we're gonna pay it back. We're gonna generate, possibly, they have other projects, they know what a solar panel makes in this area. They know how many panels they potentially could fit in, and they also know what percentage of the kilowatts they generate should come back to us. I mean, this is, I can tell you I wouldn't consider a proposal this lame on property that I own, so I certainly wouldn't for the taxpayers. I mean, the idea that it's a solar project is great. The fact that it's a break-even project for somebody who wants to use city property and make money is not a good thing. It's a bad precedent.
As part of this, they're not providing energy. This project would not provide energy to anything but the city's facility. It's sized specifically just to provide energy to the city's facility. There's no extra energy being provided they'd make money off of us as providing that energy to us or to the city, but they wouldn't be providing it to others on the grid anywhere. This would be strictly to power the infrastructure at Well 9.
Well, I understand that, but they're gonna make approximately X amount of energy. They know based on the panels, they know they could call payback a percentage of that generation. I mean, this shouldn't be a break-even project just so that they can sell us energy at basically cost or slightly below cost. I don't agree with this level of information to do it. That's all. I'm not comfortable signing up for the taxpayers for somebody else to make a profit and say it's all great because it's solar.
Alderman Davalos?
Thank you. I guess my position is I think we need to investigate what's going on here. This is rather new for municipalities. I think when Alderman Wilson made his proposal in the budget last year, there was at some point a cost that might have been $400,000 for us to do this over time, maybe putting some panels in sooner and then some later and all this. I can't remember all of the details, but it was quite a bit of money. So we don't have answers to that and how that sort of proposal and the research she did, we're going to go compare this, and this corporation would be putting the solar panels in at their expense, right? That would be part of, okay. So I'm interested in finding out, so, I mean, that would be quite a savings for us if we didn't have to put them in. So how would this all look, and what are municipalities doing that are deciding to take this route and hire people to manage their projects? And I think that the aldermen that have spoken have all spoken with some good things to be thinking about and some red flags. But I have no problem voting for this because I think we're going to have a lot of time and more votes to deal with the red flags. And I have a lot of questions which I don't need to bring up now, but would be asking in the future. So I appreciate the research that's been done. I'm excited to go forward. I know this is just giving permission to begin the process. So thank you for the information. And
Alderman Widener?
Yeah, I'd like to speak in favor of this too. When we were doing the budget approval process, the city council expressed, I think, near unanimous support for evaluating the city's use of solar. And one of the things that we all understood that we needed to do was to gain experience with operating and maintaining solar infrastructure. And I think this is a step in the right direction without wading into a multi-million-dollar project or a extraordinarily expensive solar project. And it's, teaming up with some other expertise, and it doesn't look like it'll be at any loss to the city. We'll be paying less for our electrical service as a result of this if it goes through. But I agree with Alderman Davalos in that, we can address any kind of red flags that come up as we move along the process. But to overlook a potential for a nice grant award would be something that would be, I think we'd be turning a blind eye to some savings here. So with that, I make a motion to recommend the City Council authorize staff to negotiate an agreement with Symbiont Energy LLC for the construction of a solar project to supply energy to the city's well number 9 site, provided Symbiont can deliver at least a break-even energy savings project.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Mayor Brummel, you had a comment?
Just to reiterate what the city administrator said, we're not committing to anything tonight. If this motion passes, we're committing only to gathering information and negotiating a contract, so that some of the questions that were asked will be answered directly. The blanks will get filled in, and then the council can make a final decision. But it seems to me it makes perfect sense to always investigate opportunities, especially opportunities for energy savings. Maybe on the face of it, this doesn't look that attractive, but perhaps by the time it gets worked out with staff, it will be attractive. And it also gives us more experience in looking into this type of thing, which is the future of energy. So it seems to me to make perfect sense, at least to give staff the ability to negotiate this, to delve into it deeper and to see what they can come up with and see if they can come up with a favorable contract for the city of Warrenville that will head us in the direction of solar energy. So I support the motion.
Alderman Wilson?
Yeah, this isn't quite what I was hoping for in the long run. I like to see it a lot more to it. But this does take us into that first step as the city itself, to be involved in solar. So even though this does not fulfill all of my wishes and desires of where we might be, I do think that this is the proper step and the first step, and I appreciate you looking to it, so what you've looked at now. So I'm very much in favor of it and working with the staff, and would love to see this thing done, and I too will vote favorable.
Administrator Coakley?
Thank you. Just a quick comment. I want to give kudos, credit to our public works staff. Even though we weren't able to get traction on doing our own project over the last year and a half, and I know there was frustration about that, but they have kept in the background quietly trying to keep researching and looking for some opportunity. And whether or not this passes tonight, this is an example of the hard work they do to try to keep things moving. It doesn't always get a spotlight, but they're usually working on stuff in the background, so I want to thank them. And I always forget to publicly acknowledge people, so I'm doing that here. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. Number 4, consideration of mosquito abatement request from DuPage County. Let's see. Oh, that is Management Analyst Justin Miller.
Good evening, Council. To give some history to this request, in fall 2016, city staff met with staff from the DuPage County Health Department. At the meeting, the health department staff asked the city if the city would consider some sort of mosquito abatement program. Recently, with additional staff follow-up, the city finally received that request from the DuPage County Health Department, asking the city consider a number of mosquito services, including surveillance activities. Also included in the request were larval and adult mosquito control measures. DuPage County Health Department currently runs, to give some additional context, the county currently runs a large-scale mosquito abatement program, currently funded by the state of Illinois. Part of those grant funds are allocated towards the purchase of larvicide for local entities. Currently, 44 DuPage County entities participate in some capacity in the county's program. It includes many cities and townships. Some of those include the city of Wheaton, city of West Chicago, and city of Naperville. The program before you tonight for the request is for larvicide to be used in the city's storm sewer catch basin system. The program would include the application of 2 larvicides, Alticid XR and Vectolex WSP. Alticid XR is a briquette insecticide-based product that acts as an insect growth regulator and lasts up to 150 days. Again, this primarily is used in storm sewer treatment basins. The other one is Vectolex WSP, which is a water-soluble bacterial-based pouch that clogs the digestive tract of mosquito larvae, has an effective up to 4 weeks. This product is generally used in catch basins that have stagnant water and they have high organic matter content. Both of these products are effective on larval stages for mosquitoes, so if they're in the pupal or adult stages, it's not going to be effective. And also, both of these products are safe to use around animal and plant life. The implementation of this proposed program would include the need for additional staff time, which would include additional staff training necessary to be able to apply this around the community. Application of the larvicide itself, and again, product pickup. Staff evaluated and concluded that a limited program that includes the application of larvicide to the city's storm sewer catch basin system is feasible for the department. With that, I'll take any questions.
Alderman Goodman?
When you say product pickup, do you mean getting the product from DuPage County? Do you
Correct.
mean, does it have to be then picked up and removed from all the different catch basins that you're putting it in? I mean, if it's a briquette, is it just going to dissolve?
Correct. What I meant by product pickup is physically going to get the product from the county.
Okay, so since they've requested that we participate in monitoring, but you haven't put monitoring as part of this request, are we going to be doing monitoring? How will we decide which locations to put the larvicide in?
At this point, the request is very limited just to putting and committing to putting the larvicide in the storm sewer catch basin, so it wouldn't include any kind of surveillance at this point.
So how would we do testing to determine whether or not there's any larvae in these locations? Or we just wouldn't bother?
They would just be applied to the entirety, from my understanding, be applied to the entirety of the storm sewer catch basin system. The request itself it doesn't include those testing. That might be done by the county, I'm not sure on that.
Yeah, because I mean, that seems like the sort of thing that would take a lot of staff time and training and maybe even specialized equipment and all sorts of resources that I certainly don't want to put towards something like this. I mean, just for this piece of it, it still says that we're going to have to do staff training. I mean, what kind of training will be required? How to handle the briquettes safely, things like that?
Correct. It is I believe it's a half-day training session that's done at the DuPage County Health Department every April. So that's where whatever staff members are designated to apply the larvicide in the catch basins around the community would be required to attend that. And it's on a calendar year, they would have to go back every year to recertify that.
Okay, well, if it says here that it's safe for use around animal or plant life, so does that mean it's not safe to handle, but it is safe? What?
Reading the safety sheets that they provided, there has to be some sort of protective equipment used, gloves. There is a risk if you're exposed to it with both products on the skin. So I'm assuming that's something they would learn at the training. But the safety information with both of the products indicated there needs to be protective equipment worn to handle it.
Okay, but then if it's being put in the storm sewers, I don't know, that strikes me as it's sort of safe and unsafe at the same time. We're putting things that we shouldn't touch, but we're okay with them dissolving in the water. It's just raises some concern.
Alderman Widener?
I know the county did have a mosquito trapping program that they would run alongside of this larvicide program. And I think the main reason they initiated it was when the West Nile virus-carrying mosquito became prevalent in DuPage County. They found it necessary to move into a more advanced treatment, and the larvicides that are being recommended are, I think, more specific to knocking out the larva of, I think it's the Culex pipiens mosquito that carries the West Nile virus. And I think this is effective towards that, and I think there is an analysis program that the city doesn't have to participate in. I think there's interns and other people hired by the county to evaluate the effectiveness of the program and the population of the West Nile virus carrying mosquitoes as the season progresses. So I think this is a good step, and it's probably the most environmentally safe program that that could be initiated. And you know, you still have to protect your workers with any kind of foreign chemicals that are being introduced to the system. So I think that's a precautionary measure that needs to take place. So I'll be glad to make a motion on this, but I think there's more questions. Thank you.
Okay, Alderman Davalos?
Thank you. Let's go back to the environmentally safe. And let me just make sure I'm understanding you correctly, and Alderman Widener understanding him correctly. These catch basins, does the water, does that then go to the river? Is that, I don't understand how, I know how a storm sewer works, but I'm not sure what the catch basin part of it is. Does that water end up draining into the river, let's say? Is that how that works?
Yes.
Okay, so in your presentation, you said that this larvicide would kill the larva of the mosquito, but that it would not harm other animals or fish and so that is data that we have somewhere or somebody's done research on?
Yes, yep.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Alderman Widener, you would like to make a motion?
I move to recommend the City Council direct the Public Works Department to implement a mosquito abatement program which is limited and specific to its application of larvicide in city storm sewer catch basins.
Second.
We have a motion by Alderman Widener and a second by Alderman Davalos. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion passes. Number 5, consideration of American Lung Association grant agreement. The management analyst, Justin Miller.
Thank you again. In May 2018, city staff became aware of a grant funding opportunity through the American Lung Association. Federal grant funding was available through the Environmental Protection Agency's Diesel Emissions Reduction Program. Again, some of that was delved out to the American Lung Association. The program, the DERA program, Diesel Emissions Reduction Program, is designed to maximize emission reduction from diesel engines. And as a point of reference, the EPA implemented more stringent diesel emission standards in 2007. To be eligible for grant funding, vehicles were required to be model year 2007 or earlier. Staff evaluated and identified that 4 of the city's public works vehicles will qualify for diesel particulate filters, which again is part of one of the 3 programs in this grant funding opportunities. DPF devices are designed to remove particulate matter and soot from diesel exhaust. Material and installation costs are covered at 100% through this grant funding opportunity. The city recently received an award of $85,200 for the installation of DPF devices on the 4 Public Works Department vehicles. And just as another point of reference, the city will have to pay for the material and installation costs of the DPF devices, then request reimbursement from the American Lung Association. And with that, I'll take any questions.
Alderman Goodman?
So you don't say which 4 vehicles they are. Are they vehicles that still have an expected long remaining lifetime, if they're obviously pretty old to begin with?
3 of them Yes, one of them is possibly going to be replaced in the next budget year. That hasn't been fully decided yet. But yes, there's one snowplow, our TV truck, the Vector truck, and the other one I don't know offhand. I apologize. So yes, they're going to be in the fleet for a few more years. One of them is possibly coming out in 2, possibly 3 years.
Okay, so the other one, it's still worth doing the retrofitting, even though it sounds like it must be pretty expensive retrofitting if 4 vehicles cost $85,000. So it's still worth, I know we're going to be reimbursed for it, but it's still a lot of money.
Correct. Yes, it's extremely expensive. The materials that go into it, the additional retrofitting that's required on the exhaust system that's really a lot where a lot of the cost comes in, and it's a very specialized type of service as well. So that's also the reason it costs a good amount of money. Only certain few companies that still do this sort of work.
Okay, so even on this 4th vehicle, you think it's worthwhile, is my question.
Yes, I think the one that we possibly might be shifting out of the fleet, we would probably get done first to make sure it complies with the grant, and we're getting it done first, so.
Okay, and how long will they have to be out of service to do this installation?
That I do not know. The grant requires us to get the work done within a year, though.
Yeah, it says that we have to be completed by, I think, and reimbursed by September of 2020, which isn't a year, but coming up. And my only other comment is that it says Springfield, DuPage County in the agreement, so you might want to correct that.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Bevere?
Yeah, even though we're possibly trading a vehicle, and I'm sure that once the emissions are to standards, it's going to give us a way better trade-in value if we, send it to Obenhoff or whoever we send it to, because it'll be complied. So I just wanted to bring that up. Thanks.
Good point. Okay, any other questions? Okay. A motion by Alderman Widener.
Yeah, motion to recommend the city council pass the grant agreement with the American Lung Association for the installation of diesel particulate filters on 4 city-owned vehicles.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Widener and a second by Alderman Wilson. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. On to number 6. Consideration of agreement with AIS for IT services. Assistant City Administrator Christina White.
Thank you. The city started fully outsourcing our IT services, our information technology services, back in June of 2017 in place of having an on-site staff position. Their contract with us expires December 18th of this year. As you all know, the city is in the process of an extensive ERP program and replacing the city's telephone system, and also getting ready to start our website redesign process in a few short months. There is going to be IT input on all 3 of those projects. There has already been IT input on the ones that are ongoing. AIS has been part of the city's services for several years now, and they have a very extensive knowledge of our network and the city's operations. At this time, staff is not recommending going out to bid for IT services because of those significantly large projects that are ongoing and about to start off. So having a new vendor in place and bidding out the service to a low bidder would require obviously a learning curve and some time for them to get used to our network and our operations and learning what we have going on, which would not be recommended in the middle of especially the ERP project that we're 6 months into. So at this time, staff is recommending that we continue services with AIS for a 24-month term. They have agreed to keep the rate flat at $8,000 per month, which is about $96,000 per year for the 2-year term. That includes 2 days, full days of an on-site technician, as well as 24/7 monitoring and support of our infrastructure and responding to any critical issues that come up, regardless of what time that happens. And I can attest that I've been on the phone with them at all hours of the night. With IT issues. So with that, I am happy to answer any questions.
Alderman Goodman.
Nobody likes having to call IT. It's never a fun
True
experience.
statement.
I'd like to make a motion to recommend the City Council approve an agreement with All Information Services Incorporated, AIS, for a 24-month term at an annual cost of $96,000.
Second.
A motion by Alderman Goodman and a second by Alderman Davalos. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion passes. Number 7, presentation on Public Works service levels and staffing study. And this will be presented by Justin Miller, the management analyst.
Thank you again, Council. Just wanted to give a brief overview of what, am I on? Am I on? Okay. Hold it. Just wanted to give a brief overview tonight of what has been accomplished and what we are still working on with the Public Works service levels and staffing update. Crap, now it's not working. Perfect. IT problems. Nope. Still nothing. Yeah, it's plugged in. Except it's. Sorry about that. Just to give a brief agenda tonight, just wanted to give, again, a highlight of the background of the reason the plan was put together, history of that, the implemented recommendations that I have worked on since I started in June of 2017, and also, again, the ones that are in progress that we're working on. Just to give some background, in 2015, the Public Works Service Levels and Staffing Study was completed by Novak in August of 2015. In 2016, the city hired GovHR to bring out those recommendations from the report from Novak, and that, again, was done in October of 2016. The implemented recommendations that the Public Works Department has implemented, equipping frontline staff with mobile devices, that has been essential to increasing efficiency in the department, helps staff get stuff done better, hopefully cheaper because they're printing less and stuff like that, and makes staff more efficient with their use of time. Increases in energy efficiency, we're really looking at all the opportunities that we can when we're purchasing new things to find opportunities for whether it's energy saving grants, whatever they might be. We're looking, for example, we're looking at maybe buying another variable frequency drive next year for the utility division for one of the well sites. I'm already looking at and have an application for some incentives for that when we replace that. Again, the Acorn van operations, making those efficient, the use efficient, how they use the garage, how they do their operations as a service. We've looked at that to make sure that's efficient. An efficiency review of the Public Works building and yard, just in general, how we park things, how we go about doing our business at the garage to make sure it's efficient, safe, effective for staff time. And again, recently with the implementation of the fleet and fuel management system, but again, that's the agreement the city has with the Forest Preserve District of DuPage County at their Mack Road fueling site. We've gotten the entire fleet switched over to them. We are their first entire city to do that. So, and again, the final one is the review of the call-out rules and backups. That's just ensuring that we have, for example, in street utility divisions, making sure we have staff if there are emergencies, as well as if there's any issues with the maintenance or the individual that does all the mechanical work on all the vehicles, ensuring we have backup lists in case anything happens to those two if we need emergency repairs. So those are implemented recommendations. Things that are in progress that we're still working on, that I'm working on, is data collection process. We're, again, collecting work orders as much as we can. A lot of this is going to be supplemented by the eventual implementation of the ERP. So working on those work orders, collecting those, which I'm doing. Efficiency and outcome metrics, which I've developed for both utility and street divisions, which are overall departmental things that we're looking at to make sure we're staying efficient. And again, labor hours by task, which employees are recording those to get, again, just to get a baseline. We can make better decisions with data and things like that. And then again, hopefully integrating all of this into the ERP eventually. Integration of the AutoCAD data into GIS, this is huge. I know we're working with a consultant right now to get that done. That'll be a big plus with the ERP system as well once we get that done. Make things a lot easier. Development of a safety training policy and record keeping, which again, I'm doing all of the safety stuff for the department. And again, just taking, the city already has a safety policy in place, but boiling that down more to be more specific to the Public Works Department. So something else I'm working on. And then review of pre and post employment employee checklists. Those are just under staff review. Those are complete. I hope to have that on the blue highlighted next time for the next meeting. And again, development of pre and post trip inspection reports. I've got some electronic forms for those to make it easy for staff to be able to fill those out in the field with the tablets they have now. So with that, I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Mayor Brummel? No. Oh, I thought you raised your hand. I apologize. Anyone else? Alderman Goodman?
This is going to sound a little more critical than I mean it, so don't take it as harshly as it's going to come out. But I've noticed that a lot of the things that you've completed are medium and low priority things, and that 4 out of the 5 things that say not started are high priority things. So I guess my general question is just what's going on with the order in which we're addressing the issues and whether we're really sticking with the priorities that are listed here.
I actually need to get that list. I don't have it with me. A lot of the higher level ones I am working on, it's just taking some time. I hope to be able to get so far I know the data metrics is one of those. Some of the stuff is just going to be offset by the ERP. We're trying to do those supplementally until we get a larger system that's more, again, some of this is creating, so for example, the data stuff is creating a lot of the stuff from scratch, and again, in collecting that and stuff like that, so.
Okay, and I totally understand that. A lot of these things that are high priorities, and I would also say more than half of the items on this list say high priority. So that puts you behind before you've even started. But of the 14 items that you've listed as crossed out, half are not high priority. And maybe that's because they were easier items, possibly. But what does concern me more is the number of high priority items that say just not started at all, or that sound like they haven't been started based on a comment or two. So I know that, for instance, reviewing maintenance work plans and schedules and service standards is going to be a big job, but it also sounds like something that you probably had something to begin with. They have some sort of maintenance plans, and so you're not necessarily going to have to create that from scratch. So why is that one not started?
I have started working on that. It's just, again, like you're alluding to, it's going to take a process, and
Okay, so maybe these notations are just kind of inaccurate or incomplete? Okay, that's good to know. I mean, I figured there was more to the story.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Administrator Coakley?
I just want to supplement what Justin is saying, and based on the questions, a number of these, let me start over. Once the ERP is in place, get that working, and then a little time after that, it might be 6 months or a year after that point in time, you're going to see a lot of these go to completed, because they're creating the base systems now and collecting some of the data to put into a system, but there's no system yet to use. So a work order system is a good example. It just doesn't exist. We email something in now that says subject line work order, so they're starting to collect that as some basic information, but there was no such system. They'd get their daily logs, what complaints had come in, what they know they had to work on, and they did a very good job of then going out and taking care of those things, but they didn't have an electronic record keeping system or really much of a manual one. So they're creating it, and my point is, once the ERP goes into effect, a lot of these electronic things will change. Not everything on here is related to that, but some of the high priority things certainly are. And there was no point, as we've talked about, into creating a whole new separate system, then trying to make it interface with a new ERP system when that was coming. So those are all getting delayed until that work gets done. But that's what Justin is just telling everybody. I think my point, supposed to be brief, was as soon as we get that in, It's probably a year from now, you'll see a lot of those being completed and checked off, and that'll be a good thing to get a lot more progress on this.
Alderman Goodman, go ahead.
Just one follow-up question. There are 2 high priority items that are listed here that have a projected completion date of fourth quarter 2018, which is now. I mean, it's December. So do we think that those are on the point of being complete? I think it's number 20 and number 21.
Yeah, those are, hopefully by early next year, we'll have those complete.
Okay, because yeah, safety training policy, that seems like that should be a really high priority. So the sooner the better. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, that was in information purposes only, and I thank Justin for his presentation. Our last item is informational update on the Public Works Department FY 2019 Work Plan and Decision Package. And that's just information. Does anyone have any questions at the moment for Public Works regarding that? Okay, none? All right. Well, we have nothing under miscellaneous and nothing under closed session. So all we need is one last motion. Alderman Goodman.
I move to adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? No one? Okay. Motion passes. Good night. Thank you.
Fight over that one.